Weed control was the other thing I really wanted to touch on. But I just wanted to touch on these particular cover crops and see if there's anything else people are using. In our area, buckwheat is probably the most common cover crop being used prior to garlic for weed control. We've got quite a few growers who will double or maybe even triple crop buckwheat, especially if they're having perennial weed issues. So is anybody doing anything with buckwheat prior to garlic? Buckwheat is a very interesting cover crop because it makes phosphorus more available. Very unique in that way. Yep. Yeah. So I like buckwheat a lot. We'll have to have some discussion about whether or not that's a good option. But certainly for an organic system, there are very few things that can rival buckwheat as a smother crop. We'll also talk about oats in just a minute. I wanted to talk about sorghum Sudan grass as kind of a multi-tool, good for weed control and biocontrols. And then we'll talk about what you guys think of too. So, buckwheat, of course. I really like buckwheat for a variety of reasons, especially on diversified vegetable farms, because it serves a lot of purposes. Besides being a smother crop, it obviously attracts a ton of beneficials. We have quite a few growers in our area who do garlic as just one of 10 to 20 different crops. And they like to try and make sure that the garlic fits into their rotation in a way that buckwheat ends up near other crops that need beneficials. So that's one of the neat ways that our growers are using it. One of the other nice things about buckwheat is that you don't have to fertilize at all to establish buckwheat. It's a great scavenger. But on the flip side, it doesn't provide any fertility besides phosphorus, right? You don't get any nitrogen from buckwheat. So you have to consider that. Anything else people are enjoying or not enjoying about buckwheat? Has anybody let it go to seed?
Yeah.
Yeah. And did you have problems?
I think what that should say is kill low or disc at start of flowers.
Yes. Yes.
Once you've got flowers visible in the fields, like that field, the photo, you've got seed produced.
Right, because what we're seeing is the top flowers, right? So there's flowers down below that have already dropped seeds. Yeah, that's true. It should say start of flowering. We've had quite a few growers lose track of their buckwheat and not be able to eliminate it as a weed for a few years. So, with aggressive control. So something to think about.
We used to be very blessed with very cheap buckwheat here because of Burkett Mills. And that's gone. You talk about to growers in Illinois or other parts of the country, we were paying $8 or $9 a bushel, and they were paying $30, $40 a bushel. And now, of course, again, it's no longer cheap. It's gone to a high price seed again.
Oh yeah, the demand is so high right now for buckwheat because of its diversity in the system. Right. And the other nice thing is if you have a land-type situation, you can split buckwheat into small time windows, right? This is the quickest cover crop you can grow. So yes, but it is expensive now. It's definitely gotten expensive. Okay, so this is actually David's slide, and I'm going to let him talk about this. What is this cover crop, by the way, everybody?
Well, this field is a very sandy loam field on a 4% grade. So we contour this field. And one of the things that we found is even with contouring, we were getting wash. Everyone here in this room has heard me talk about bare ground planted garlic is the worst possible thing to take into winter. So, and anytime we're on sandy loam in our rotation, we'll go in the end of August and we'll plant oats. And these oats are probably at 2 bushel. I don't remember what it is. They look fairly dense. And plant them in August, and then what I'll do is come in, I might mow them, I might go through with a disc, you beat them up. You can't kill oats at this stage. And then we open up the furrows with discs, and then we plant and cover. The first rain, that field is green again. Those roots aren't damaged at all. That field will go back green, but then because the oats winter kill, it goes from a living mulch to a dead mulch in the spring.
So then you've got the cover on top and the root system holding that soil in place. Yeah.
You never get washed when we do this.
Yeah.
In Canada, They actually plant garlic, and then they will plant wheat on top of the garlic to hold soil, and then they come in and kill that with a herbicide.
Dave, what about wheat curl mite? We've always been told not to do that.
We've never had it.
Yeah.
I've had it, and it was after sort of demand, but it's a cereal grain.
You know, mites in general are something that we will be looking at more in the future. It's an issue that pops up occasionally, and we don't know exactly why that is. We're not sure the source, we're not sure what in the environment is triggering it. So we'll be working more on that, because in general, I would say that the benefits of cover cropping and using the whole cover crop toolbox have outweighed the drawbacks for the whole industry. But if you're the farmer that ends up with wheat curl mite, you're not happy. So we're working on that. But in general, so far, I haven't stopped recommending cover crops to anybody based on wheat curl mite because it's so isolated. But so it's something that we are very much thinking about. It happens so infrequently that we almost have trouble catching why it's happening, because it happens and then it's gone. So we don't get a chance to see it again sometimes for a while, but it's on the radar anyway.
Well, the thing with wheat curl mite is that we didn't notice it until garlic was in storage and we started seeing rot because of their feeding. They'll continue feeding even if it's refrigerated down into the low 30s. And it is very periodic. It's a big problem in the cereal growing areas around Nebraska, Missouri. And periodically they have outbreaks that spread all the way up into Canada. And I've talked to the Cornell field crops people. They've never heard of it being a problem in New York, but we found it that one year in 7 counties on garlic. So we may not be looking, it's just something that we've got to keep on the radar. And it's very, very tiny. It's not like other mites, like the two-spotted mite where you see webbing and stuff. This is, again, one of those little critters that get down into the cloves. So we've got to start looking, when you're harvesting your garlic, just pull it apart with take a hand lens and start looking at it. This is a pest that can really cause problems for storage.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, beyond getting it cold, there aren't too many great control measures either.
No, it's like nematode. It's the same sort of, they're protected in the clove. It's hard to treat.
And then they're gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's people in this room, that I have talked with that lost their garlic that washed out right after planting.
Yeah.
And you just think about it. You're opening the ground, bare cultivation, you got nothing. If you mulch, you've got something holding, but if you're bare ground, you got nothing holding your soil going through winter. It's the worst possible combination of things. And this is, maybe there's other things. We haven't found a lot that winter kills. So using oats like this has been the best.
Yeah, I have racked my brain trying to come up with some other living mulch that fits in the system, and I don't think there is anything else. And I can't think of exactly how you would do this comfortably on a raised bed system either. Row cropping seems to be the way to go with this, but it definitely works in this situation. One of the growers that I worked with recently didn't want to do this and was showing me his garlic and was convinced that he didn't have an erosion problem. My soil's heavy enough, it freezes, I never have the soil wash off. And then 20 minutes later, he was explaining to me that he has to retrench his pond that's at the bottom of the hill every 3 or 4 years. It fills up with dirt. That's where the dirt came from. It was the garlic portion of the field. So yeah, it is a serious issue. And even if you don't realize it, having a cover is extremely beneficial. So play with this.
I think if I remember right, the rest of that field, the rest of this was planting through a dead mulch in spring. And I think we transplanted through that after it was dead, and it did not work for suppression. And we tried it later on. I think we had to go over 3 bushel an acre to get enough dead biomass covering the ground that gave us weed control.
Yeah. Yeah, mulches in general, living or otherwise, that's a huge issue. If you didn't get the rate just right to actually suppress weeds, then you have a huge problem because you can no longer control them. So if you're gonna play with this, make sure you do it in an area where you can take some measures if you didn't quite get it right. Yeah, that's a good point.
Speaking of grades, did you drill those oats on day or
Yes.
broadcast?
Drill.
Okay, so you get away with a little bit lower rate if you drill them rather than broadcast.
Yeah.
How late can you plant them, Dave?
Um,
Assuming if one put the garlic in and then plant.
Is it
Oh,
10
so
weeks
it's not
before
on.
frost?
You know, you still get fairly good control. I'm trying to think, I don't think there's a formula in my head for that. What happens is you can, you're using your platform planter.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't want very big crop because you're not opening anything before you're going through with that. So I would probably hold out, you know, for early September sometime. But you can disc these, you can beat these up and first rain, they come right back. So we've done that before. We've gone over them with a disc.